Listen, I'm sure everybody who went to go see the Great American Eclipse has a story to tell. Unless you live in the area, and still you would have a story to tell because it's pretty spectacular what happened. So I'm going to tell you the story of how Debbie, my wife, and I, and my disabled brother, Andy, went to go see the eclipse and the things that we went through to get there, what it was like when we got there, and then our trip back home. All of them eventful parts of the journey. So let me begin with the quest. I wanted to see this eclipse very badly, especially after I saw the October 14th eclipse in Nevada, where I saw the Ring of Fire. And we did a separate video at Western Dirt Roads on YouTube, our YouTube channel. By the way, people always forget to like. Hopefully, if you don't forget, take a second and click on like, smash that like button, and let us know that you appreciate this. We really wanted to go see that total eclipse because the Ring of Fire, if you saw our last video called The Ring of Fire on our YouTube channel, it's only 5 minutes long, so I highly recommend that you go see that. We went to the middle of the desert on the border of Nevada and Idaho, and we got dead center on the Ring of Fire. And there's one thing I have to tell you about that. When we got there, there were like 1,000 people at a Sunoco gas station right there in the middle of nowhere in the parking lot. There were RVs there, telescopes, tons of people with lawn chairs and everything else. But it was cloudy. And I have to say, those people didn't see the eclipse. How did Debbie and I get to see that eclipse? Now remember, it isn't a total eclipse. It's a Ring of Fire where the moon is a little bit farther away from Earth, so it doesn't cover the entire sun. The way we saw it is, I have my off-road vehicle, and I saw a little beam of light poking through the clouds going along these hills, and you'll see it in the video. And I zoomed up the pass to where that beam of light was about to intersect near the road. And I went up there and timed it just right. The beam of light came upon us and we saw the eclipse. And all those thousands of people that were down there lining the road in the clouds didn't see it. Something similar happened when we went to go see the total eclipse. But our journey actually began a lot sooner than that. It began in the planning phase. I had a friend that I've known since elementary school who had a relative who rented an Airbnb dead center in Texas on a lake near San Antonio. And I was hoping to go down there and hang with them, but that didn't work out. So I kept putting it off and tried to make reservations, kept thinking about going, and then when I got ready to pay for my reservation, I noticed that the weather didn't seem right, and so I said, well, let's drive. Because if we drive, then we can drive around and find the blue sky somewhere and see the total eclipse, even if it's cloudy down there in Texas. Well, turns out that as we were getting ready to drive and I got my RV totally ready to go, spent money getting it professionally cleaned, getting it washed, getting the engine worked on, even had some repairs to the air conditioning, got it ready to go, and I found out that the entire path from Mazatlan to Oklahoma was going to be cloudy or anticipated to be stormy or cloudy. So I said, oh no. So finally, the earliest forecasts of clouds showed that there might be some clearing in Maine and in the Ohio River Valley. So I decided I'm going to go for Cleveland. So we made the reservations to fly to Cleveland, but we had to go roundabout, do some long layovers, stop off at Atlanta, transfer, and I'm taking my wife with me who has a broken kneecap and an electric scooter, and my brother Andy, who's profoundly disabled, about a 1-year-old, can't talk, he's mute, doesn't understand anything what's going on. I got nobody to watch him, so I have to take him with me. And he loved going. He did, he loved it. He was clapping on the plane. So I didn't know if he really understood what a plane was. I still don't think he knows what a plane is. Because, you go through that walkway and then you just go through a little entrance. I thought he was on a bus. But anyway, so we finally make it down to Atlanta. And by the way, the plane flight, the prices are astronomical. So to get a cheaper flight, we had lengthy layovers, okay? So we're in Atlanta, and after all the things that we did, we get on the plane to finally go to Cleveland. And we finally are sitting in our chair. It's a beautiful plane, sitting in the chair, ready to go, ready to take off in our last leg of our journey. And then there's an announcement over the loudspeaker system. It's the flight attendant. All passengers, please disembark the plane. And you could hear the crowd of 250 people suddenly, in unison, go, oh. Why? Why do we have to get off the plane? I thought to myself. So I get off the plane and I ask around and they go, they closed the Cleveland airport. I'm a prepper, so my mind goes to the worst. What's the worst, right? A nuclear bomb came in because Iran's about ready to attack Israel and blew up the airport, and I'm going to be stuck here with my family, with my wife with a broken kneecap, in a wheelchair, and my profound brother in the middle of nowhere with none of my prepping supply. My brain is like, ah! I'm freaking out. So they told us there was an airplane crash, and there was a fire, and some people got hurt, but it was a small plane. So about an hour and a half later, we found out, go back, you can go back on the plane. They cleared it. So we went back on the plane. We arrived in Cleveland, got our rental car, and my wife with her knee just couldn't get into the big, brand new Ford Explorer. Wow, that was a nice rental car I had. Couldn't get in. So we settled for a smaller Dodge Durango, which was still pretty nice. She was able to get in. I put the wheelchair in the back. We went to our hotel. And I'm not going to tell you the name brand of our hotel because prices were astronomical. Like outer space. Anyway, the hotel was gross, to say the least. The details, the sink was so clogged that when the water finally went down, it was solid black. Hardly anything worked in the room. But I said, we're here, we got a place, we're here, and they moved us to another room because the room they put us in only had one bed. We had 3 people. They downgraded us to a worse room even, but we just swallowed it, and we were just happy to be there. So then the time came to get ready to go to the eclipse, and I scoped out the weather like crazy, and I saw that it was going to be possibly partial clearing because some front had moved in or something. And I'm thinking, oh no. I even had paper maps of New York, of Pennsylvania, northern Ohio, in case we had to like drive and the cell phones were overwhelmed because all the people were there. And so I decided that we're just going to find the dead center of where it hits Lake Erie. So if you know anything about northern Ohio, there's a town called Avon Lake. Specifically, there's a restaurant there called Jake's on the Lake, and that's pretty much right on the red line of the middle where it goes off into the lake, and it's the end of the United States. We're talking about the end of the land right before Canada. The border is right in the middle of the lake. So we headed out there, we scoped it out, took some pictures of the scenic houses along the lake, and then we found a McDonald's nearby there, checked that out, and went back to our hotel for the next day. I had planned to have lunch first at 1 o'clock nearby, so we're going to leave the hotel early. A lot of planning here. Leave the hotel early, get to a restaurant by 12 or so, have lunch, and then by 1 o'clock, get to our site. So it turned out that we got to our restaurant at 1 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock we were set up outside the restaurant. It was a really nice Mexican food place right near the epicenter, and the parking lot was empty. There were a couple benches there. So we went in and had really great Mexican meal, Mexican food, and I had extra solar glasses. I gave them to the staff. We were all set, ready to film there. And I walked out at about 2 o'clock when it started to move across the sun, and I had a heart attack. Not a literal heart attack, an emotional one. Why? Can you guess? That storm front had moved in while we were eating. When we sat down inside, it was blue sky. When we came out, it was cloudy. And I thought, all this, and I'm not going to see it. All this, and we're going to miss it. I was so panicked. I didn't know what to do. I started perseverating. Debbie, what do I do? What do I do? And she goes, look over there. I said, what? Above the roof of the restaurant was a blue area. And she goes, go that way now. And I said, are you sure we might be able to see it here with some high clouds drifting in maybe? She goes, get over there. So I threw everything into the back of the car, put the tripod in there, everything in there, and the cameras, and put the people in the car, and started driving north towards that blue spot. And we couldn't drive anymore. We got to the edge of the lake by Jake's on the Lake restaurant. They had a parking lot, was pretty empty, and it's right there in Avon Lake, just west of Cleveland. And it's where the red line goes right off into the lake, and we were right there, dead center of the moon. Imagine if the moon were on Earth and we drove across the moon to get to the middle of the moon. That's where we were. Okay? And it was blue sky. And I didn't see the clouds. They must have been behind the trees or something. And so I set up my camera. I got all my stuff out. And Debbie was situated in the passenger seat. Sunroof was open. And she had a perfect view of the sun. She had the special glasses, the expensive ones. She was all set watching the moon move across the sun on the way to totality. In the meantime, I'm trying to take pictures. I had 3 cameras. I'm trying to take pictures like crazy. I couldn't get the setting right. All the pictures were blurry. Nothing was working. I tried all my solar filters. I couldn't get it to work for the life of me. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to set up my 4K video camera on this tripod. So I take out my tripod and it falls apart. And all of a sudden, boom, the sky turns black and the corona appears. And Debbie starts screaming. And I heard screaming from a million people that were there in Cleveland. I heard them all along the beach screaming. Everybody was screaming, yelling, "Oh my God, look how beautiful!" And I wasn't screaming because I was crawling under the car when that happened, trying to get the pieces of my tripod. Finally, I had to use the tripod legs to get it out. I put it together. I put the camera together. I put the video camera on there and made sure the picture was on the video camera and just let it run. I said, if nothing else, I'm going to videotape it with this 4K video camera. It's going to be good. So I let that thing run. In the meantime, I switched to my other camera, which has a 60x optical zoom, which I was saving for this moment. And sure enough, I got the pictures that I wanted, and I just stared at that thing. Let me tell you, on the one hand, I'm sorry I went for this reason, and that is, that site was so beautiful. Like everybody says, cameras don't do justice. I'm telling you, any picture you've seen doesn't do justice. It's like the light is like, it's like the face of God or something. It's like so pure, so white, so clean. It's like, have you ever got your teeth clean and have that clean feeling, or bleach something? It's so clean. This is like, I can't describe. It's just white, clean light. It's like perfect, beautiful, and it's burned into my brain. So all I do now, since I've been back, is think about that. I got that thing burned into my head. So if you want to have that problem the rest of your life, probably go see the total eclipse, because that's a side effect that I was not expecting. Anyway, I got some great pictures. Matter of fact, I even got some close-ups of the edge of it right when the diamond ring appeared, and there was this prominence on the side. It was like two flares, and one of them was so bright and strong, it looked like about the size of 3 Earths. And I got some really great pictures of the eclipse. And then I took one picture, wide angle of the trees around us and the sky. And it wasn't until I got home, when I looked at it, that I realized that storm front was like, it looked like inches away from the eclipse. So we barely made it. And it was moving too. It was coming in. And so we barely made it. So then comes the third part, which is the journey home. We got on the plane, we made it, but we had an 8-hour layover in Las Vegas. Well, guess what hotel we stayed at? Yep, the Stratosphere. And before we went to Stratosphere, we went to this comedy show. So our flight landed at like 9:30 at night. Got to the comedy show at 10. That was over with at 11:30. Went to bed at 12, and then we had to be up at 3 in the morning to catch a flight at 6. So at 3:30, we're in the taxi going to the airport, total darkness, and I said, what is that thing over there? It looked like the moon. Well, it's that sphere. So we stayed in the hotel, Stratosphere, and then all of a sudden, here's a sphere, the moon on Earth, lit up and rotating. It's the moon. And so I said, I want to take a picture of that. So the taxi driver turns down the street towards it and says, there you go, take your picture. So here's a photo, and you can see McDonald's there, and then there's a video. So this thing is awesome. So that kind of wraps up our flight, wraps up our whole trip. And I have to say, was it worth it? 3 minutes for $3,000? What do you think? Thanks for watching and listening, and please don't forget to subscribe, hit the subscribe button and also the like button, and join us on our next journey on Western Dirt Roads. Lots of other videos here as well. Thank you for going along with us virtually on this trip. Vicariously, we appreciate you guys. God bless. This is Peter, Debbie, and Andy saying so long. Remember, the adventure is the journey.